What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. As my good buddy and co-host says all the time, if we think about it, we're going to talk about it. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. Tonight for me, maybe tonight for you. Not sure when you're actually going to be watching this. But what's been on my mind lately is how, as fans, are we going to measure success this year? It can't necessarily be by wins and losses. And the reason why I say that is because we had more wins last year than we have in the previous years, but the fan came away feeling disappointed. Disappointed for a lot of different reasons. The loss of Julio Jones, the loss of Calvin Ridley. And these things put a damper on the season. You got the next possible generational talent in a rookie tight end last year that was breaking all kinds of records and, should have been making us excited. But yet there seemed to be a gloom that was hanging over the team because the wins were, oh, well, you just beat the Jags, or you just beat the Jets, or you just beat the Giants. Okay, I was saying last year that a win is a win, and especially the ones on the road are harder to do per se in the NFL. Most of the fan base didn't want to hear that, which is fine. I get it. It was the Jags. It was the Jets. It was the Giants. And those wins didn't look pretty. They weren't dominating wins. Like the few games that you dominated offensively, some of those you lost. The Washington game. So, I've been thinking about it. I even asked in one of those Twitter spaces that I'm always talking about, what is the measuring stick of success year 2 for this regime, for this front office, for this coaching staff? The roster doesn't necessarily appear to be that much better. And we'll get into that here in a second. So let's talk about the front office and what they came into. Last year they came in being hired and being up against it as far as the cap goes, having to orchestrate a trade for a franchise icon, being asked, is your other franchise icon still a part of your plan going forward? And let y'all in on a little something if you don't know. Some of you might. It takes a while to compile the information needed to make a sound judgment on who to draft and on who to sign, who you want to go after free agent wise. Now last year they definitely didn't have no money, and they were in an evaluation process, so they didn't really extend nobody either. Hindsight's 2020. Glad they didn't extend Calvin Ridley. That would have been real bad. But they didn't extend Grady. They didn't extend Jake Matthews, and they didn't extend Matt Ryan. So they did what they had to do to get under the cap and try to field a decent roster. That roster that we all agreed was arguably worse than the year before produced 7 wins. So there's a part of me that says that that's a plus, that's something that we as a fan base should be somewhat excited for, even if it did come against bad teams. At least you were beating teams that you were supposed to beat. Some could argue that we weren't even supposed to beat them, that we were on par with them. I don't know. So, you fast forward to this year, and I already hear and see Falcons fans talking about, oh, Terry Fontenot's bungling this or bungling that, and Arthur Smith I'm already questioning his ability to call plays and all this other stuff. And I sit back and go, wow, man, it's just been 1 year, 1 calendar year, and y'all are already wanting to question it. I mean, I, for one, say give the people some time. Even before last year, you had 3 losing seasons with better talent. So let's see what they can do before we just want to run them out of town. That's kind of my point. But to the front office part of this equation, people are like, oh, they bungled the Deshaun Watson saga. I'll admit, in the moment, I wasn't necessarily pleased with how it turned out. I wasn't necessarily pleased that our name was put in the ring for it. But once you stopped and thought about it logically, which is what I try to do with all the football stuff, it made sense why you went after him. I'm not going to rehash all that, but I would figure that the vast majority of you would be happy that this front office was actually trying to be aggressive and address one of the bigger problems, and yes, I'm using air quotes, one of the bigger things that the Falcon fan base wanted to gripe about all the time, which was the quarterback. They were trying to address it. They were trying to make a substantial upgrade. They were trying to have their cake and eat it too. So it didn't work out. You took a gamble and you missed. But I understood why you went after it. And I actually figured there'd be something that the fans would have been appreciative of outside of the off-the-field allegations. And it's not just Deshaun Watson that they went after. They were in on Jarvis Landry. Reports have surfaced that they were in on Devontae Parker before he got traded to New England. So they're trying to be aggressive in a logical sense of trying to upgrade this roster. And you're also seeing that it seems like right now this coaching staff seems to have a preference for veteran players. Players who are already seasoned. Now, back to the front office. You miss out on Deshaun Watson, but you're really starting to see a savviness to Terry Fontenot, especially on the pro personnel side, which was his calling card. He's been in on some big names, hadn't landed them all, but they call it fishing, not catching. Okay? So at least he's out there fishing. But he has landed some interesting prospects in Lorenzo Carter, in Auden Tate, in Damian Williams. He was able to convince all of them to come here on 1-year deals. That's another aspect. As it stands right now, they're not making any long-term plans for anybody. Outside of Jake Matthews, which was I think a 3 or 4 year extension, nobody else is getting like guarantees. I think Cordell Patterson got a multi-year deal when he re-upped. But they're not making panic moves. They're not signing big names and backloading contracts. They could do that. They have a lot of money next year. Fontenot could bring in just about anybody, sign them for next to nothing this year, and backload their contract. It's not illegal to do that. He's not doing that. In my feelings, it's because he's still trying to evaluate what is needed for this roster, what's going to fit. He's taken some gambles on some guys like he did on Cordell Patterson last year, and hoping that they new change of scenery sparks, something in their career. And next year, when you have more cap space, you can sign some guys to longer deals. We're in year 2 of a rebuild. I don't care what they call it. It's a rebuild by virtue of only having 29 guys on the roster at the start of the offseason. Like, flat out, it's a rebuild. So in a rebuild, what is the measure of success? Is it play calling? Arthur Smith, do you want to see a jump in his play calling? Because I'm here to tell you, I've been doing a lot of research when when I'm not, checking out prospects or what have you, on this offensive scheme, compiling for a video that me and Toby are going to do once the draft comes and we see all the pieces, how they've fallen into place. This offense, and I know this part's going to be wild, and y'all are going to look at me like I'm an idiot, and that's fine. This offense isn't that far off from Kansas City. And I'm talking stylistically. They do a lot of the same stuff. Very similar. Same thing with LA. Difference, talent level. That's the difference right now. It doesn't look good because the people running it don't look good. There's a old saying, it's more about the Jimmies and Joes than the X's and O's. Well, right now we don't really have any Jimmies or Joes. We have some like Johns and Jimbos. So once we get an influx in talent, which may start coming in this draft this year, I expect that scheme to come on up as far as production went. Because you can't sit here and tell me that Arthur Smith, who presided over Tennessee's offense for the past 2 seasons before he came here and had them in the playoffs, when their defense wasn't the reason why they were in the playoffs, so all of a sudden forgot how to coach. Please. No. They're meshing a lot of concepts from Dave Ragone and Arthur Smith. They're blending it to make their own. So last year was some filling out process and it's clear as a bell, it's clear as day what they're looking for in a quarterback. They've got a better version of it now. So I expect the offense to look better. So is that a measure stick? Does the offense look more consistent? Is that what we'll sit back at the end of the year and go, okay, yeah, we were able to, look more consistent. So therefore I feel like we've made progress. You had a defense last year that outside of Grady Jarrett, A.J. Terrell, and Foye Oluokun fielded a bunch of nobodies. On the defensive line, the safeties, my God. So now you got 2 young safeties who've had a full year to maturate in this scheme. So do they get more run time? You have a younger linebacker in Michael Walker and freshly added Rashawn Evans, who are more confident in this scheme. So does Dean Pease get to open up that playbook more? Like, that's what I'm trying to get y'all to see and get y'all to understand. After 1 year, y'all, I use that, like, that's the royal y'all. Y'all are wanting to run everybody out of town, and it don't make no sense to me. We knew, especially after the preseason, I say preseason because that's when it really hit me in the face. Like, we knew that this was a bad roster last year. One of the only things that made it look good, and I don't care what y'all say or slam me for, one of the only things that made it look halfway decent last year was Ryan. There towards the end, Mike Davis kind of started looking like he was getting more comfortable in what he was asked to do in the run game and was running hard, and I liked it, and I hope that he hits the ground running if he's still here. Hence I said if. Because I don't think we're done churning the roster. I don't think we're just adding the draft picks and moving on. So it will be interesting to see. You can tell that they definitely weren't happy with McGarry because they brought in 2 right tackles in Jermaine Ifedi and Eric Wilkinson. Like Wilkinson today said he could play right guard. Don't need that. We got Chris Lindstrom. But he felt more comfortable at right tackle. Same thing with Ifedi. Now, I think Ifedi might be able to play left guard, but his best years have been played at right tackle. So, unless you think you're going to plug McGarry in at left guard, he's got some real competition there. So you can definitely tell they weren't settled with that. So is it a decrease in number of sacks? Is that a measurement of success? Is it more touchdowns? more time of possession. Like, what are we looking at? What are we wanting? Is it more turnovers, more sacks? We only had 18 sacks last year. You brought in Lorenzo Carter. You're hoping he's going to be a better version of Dante Fowler. So you brought him in. You got A.D. Ogundeji on the other side, and possibly whoever you add in the draft. So is it more sacks? Because right now, for me, the front office has my stamp of approval. They're making some very smart, savvy moves that I appreciate. They're not tying themselves to an aging veteran for big-name splash purposes. They're not like overcommitting to anybody these first 2 years, as they're still evaluating the roster and evaluating how they're building this thing. Everybody's making jokes and chuckling about Ryan Pace being the real GM because of all the Chicago Bears we've been signing. All that shows that he's got a voice in the room, and these are the guys he's familiar with. You got him on cheap deals with the possibility of, getting something out of that. Demir Bird, he seems like he could be a much better spark plug than Russell Gage was last year. Between him and Olamide Zaccheaus, you've injected some speed back into this roster. So I don't know, folks. I can't answer the question for you. I know there's going to be a good bit of y'all that are just, no matter what happens, are going to be unhappy, and I get it. I really do. There's some things I'm looking to see, that will mark success for me. Can you consistently get a run game going? That was your calling card in Tennessee. Now, I know you had Derrick Henry, but we saw last year when that run game wasn't going. So can you get that run game going? That's going to be a measurement of success. Can that defense start to look like that Dean Pease, A-gap blitzing, double A gaps, creepers defense? Can we get that going? That's going to be a measurement of success. Like, what are you going to do with Grady Jarrett, front office? Like, if you're not going to sign him, can you at least flip him for assets? That's a measurement of success for me. Yes, this year's not going to be about wins or losses. Most of y'all are going to be gunning for the first pick overall anyway. But to me, there are ways to see this as a success this season. It's just whether you choose to see it or not. Whether you tend to look for it or not. Me, myself, I'm going to do what I can to try to find it. To try to see if there's improvement from last year to this year. Something to give me a little bit of spark going forward. So, leave your comment down below. What's your measurement for success this year? Is it wins or losses? Is it Kyle Pitts getting more than one touchdown? Like, what's your measurement of success? That's all I got for y'all tonight. As always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. You can follow Toby at TobyD1991. Keep your eye on the show, the channel page, as we're always adding shows like this, our live streams, guests when we can get them. We're just trying to bring y'all the content that we think y'all might enjoy. But as always, Falcons fans, rise up.